Imagine the scene. It's 750 AD, and Chang'an stands as the biggest city on the planet. 1 million residents crowd behind walls rising 20 meters high. Emperor Xuanzong governs a vast realm stretching from the Korean peninsula to Persia's frontiers. This marks the Tang Dynasty's zenith, prior to any uprisings or downfall when China led as the globe's most sophisticated society. Yet what did a typical day feel like in this place? Not from the viewpoint of royalty or commanders, but as an everyday individual threading through the planet's inaugural global metropolis. Drawing on AI analysis of ancient texts and digs, we've pieced together a full 24-hour glimpse into Tang-era Chang'an. Beyond the glamour of silks and ruling houses, or the elegance of verses and ceramics, we're delving into the genuine urban pulse, the dusk lockdown that confines everyone indoors, the clandestine evening bazaars defying bans, traders chattering in over a dozen tongues. Spanning from first light to the wee hours, here's the authentic rhythm of daily existence in Tang, China. Transport yourself 1,300 years into the past. Daybreak. The sun's still below the horizon, yet Chang'an stirs to life. The sound reaches you first. The enormous bronze bell in the tower tolling 108 peals. That's the cue. The urban portals swing wide, the overnight restrictions end, and folks can roam freely once more. You dwell in a fang, one of those enclosed districts dotting the metropolis. Each features barriers that seal, shut after dark. Unlike the sprawling layouts of other old-world settlements, Chang'an's rigidly structured, an impeccable latticework, 108 blocks aligned in tidy lines. East-west thoroughfares stretch unbroken for miles, while north-south boulevards match their exactness. The whole layout mimics a game board: precision, balance, authority. Your home's modest, timber-framed, topped with tiles, fitted with rice paper panes and enclosing a compact yard. Neither destitute nor affluent. As a junior imperial scribe, you're versed in letters and lore, woven into the administrative web sustaining the realm. Out on the lanes, crowds swell, bureaucrats en route to the palace for dawn sessions, vendors unlocking stalls, attendants hauling water or grabbing morning meals. Saffron-clad Buddhist priests already patrol the paths, intoning dawn devotions. The city boasts countless Buddhist shrines with soaring pagodas piercing the horizon. The faith arrived from India, ages back, journeying via the Silk Road, and now permeates every corner of Tang territory. Yet Taoism and Confucianism thrive alongside, plus otter faiths. Zoroastrian flame sanctuaries dot the landscape. Nestorian Christian chapels rise up, and there's even a mosque serving Persian Muslim traders. No spot on earth rivals Chang'an's spiritual variety, and it doesn't merely endure it, it embraces the diversity. Forenoon. With the sun high, you're striding toward the imperial quarter. This northern hub houses the sovereign, the administrative machinery. You cross the Vermilion Bird Gate, the primary south portal. The processional way to it spans 500 feet across, broader than Roman roads, outstripping any in Europe's Middle Ages. Shade trees flank the edges, horse dignitaries clip along, litters bear aristocrats. Pedestrians follow strict lanes. Your destination, the Ministry of Revenue. Duties there drag, logging provincial levies, duplicating forms, archiving ledgers. Still, you earn the post via the merit exams. Tang rule ignores birthright. If you ace the imperial test, you're in. It probes verse composition, brushwork, Confucian texts, and chronicles. You toiled for years, committing countless scripts to memory, mastering formal poems in set meters. The majority of candidates flop. You didn't. Now you belong. Within the ministry, copyists hustle. Quill. Tips glide over sheets of paper and fabric. The faint rasp of pigment on material. China birthed paper long ago, a rarity abroad, routine locally. The regime churns out myriad papers daily. Levy tallies, court verdicts, troop orders, envoy notes. That's the mechanism for managing 50 million souls, an empire steered by documents. Your overseer, holding 6th grade status, hands down the task. Audit rice deliveries from Sichuan, match them against levy logs. Monotonous, sure, but vital. Grain fuels the Tang. Southern rice, northern wheat, western millet. Every bit monitored, catalogued, levied. By late morning, you've wrapped the initial shift. Time for the West Market. Here, the Silk Road culminates. Vendors from Persia, Sogdia, India, Arabia converge, hawking wares hauled across continents. Persian carpets catch the eye, Afghan lapis lazuli gleams, Indian tusks impress, Central Asian steeds prance, Roman glass sparkles. The bazaar sprawls hugely, over 200 acres, with outlets grouped by craft, silks in one zone, smiths in the next, eateries nearby. You catch snippets of unfamiliar tongues echoing around you, Sogdian, Persian, Sanskrit, Arabic. Folks mill about in outfits you've never laid eyes on, flowing robes, turbans, veils, sharp-pointed caps. Many of these traders have put down roots in Chang'an for generations, foreign merchants who've wed local Chinese wives and brought up mixed-heritage kids. The Tang Dynasty welcomes outsiders without hesitation, drawing them into its fold. You pause at a stand hawking Central Asian flatbread, dense and baked in a clay tandoor, miles away from the soft-steamed buns back home. The seller hails from Sogdia, near what we'd now call Uzbekistan, and his Chinese comes out halting and rough. You hand over copper coins for it, the everyday Tang money, round discs with that signature square hole at the center. Next, you meander into the silk district, where rolls of the stuff gleam in every shade imaginable: crimson, emerald, azure, gilded yellow, some smooth and simple, others bursting with intricate designs. Silk stands as China's prized export. It's making a fiercely protected mystery. Spill the secrets, and it's the death penalty. Yet the Tang ships out tons of the cloth itself, heading west via the Silk Road to Persia, then onward to Byzantium and Rome. In return, the empire brings in glassware, wool fabrics, gemstones, and above all, steeds. Tang China can't get enough of horses, those sturdy, swift Central Asian breeds built for speed and power. The army relies on them for warfare, the elites crave them for prestige. A fine mount screams high status. You spot a cluster of aristocrats inspecting imports from Fergana. Stunning creatures way beyond your humble budget. Come midday, hunger strikes once more, so you make for a eatery by the East Market. In Tang-era China, dining out in spots like this thrives, a custom Europe won't catch up to for a millennium. You claim a seat at a table where a waiter delivers hot tea, followed by an array of bites: steamed dumplings, tangled noodles, wok-tossed greens, and saucy pork slices. Tea flows freely across Tang China, brewed by whisking ground leaves into steaming water, a ritual that's captivating the upper crust. Before long, a budding intellectual called Lu Yu will capture these very customs in his legendary tea treatise, detailing cultivation, brewing, and savoring. The Tang upper class thrives on elegance, flawless tea rites, polished verse, masterful brushwork. On that note, the gentlemen nearby are trading lines of poetry aloud. Composing poems marks true learning. Bureaucrats craft them, academics pen them. Even courtesans weave their own. The top poets shine like stars, Li Bai, the tipsy roamer celebrating booze and moonlight. Du Fu, the grave voice chronicling battles and hardship. Their words are on everyone's lips. Tang verse adheres to rigid forms. Lines of 5 or 7 syllables, set tones, controlled rhymes. It's a challenge by design. Prose is for anyone, but elite poetry demands real skill. Post-meal, you duck into a tea house where a performer strums the pipa, that pear-bodied lute imported from Persia. Tang music pulses with global flair, blending native strings and winds with step influences, local tunes with exotic beats. The reigning emperor Xuanzong shares this passion, crafting his own scores and sustaining a vast palace ensemble of hundreds. In Tang China, the arts and sophistication aren't mere extras, they prove a society's greatness. As the day wears on, you find yourself at an assembly in the Imperial Academy, the hub for scholarly pursuits, debates, classical studies, and grooming tomorrow's administrators. Today's highlight, a poetry showdown. Aspiring literati to craft the finest regulated poem on an assigned topic, parting at a border outpost. Each gets 60 minutes to forge an 8-stanza piece, 5 syllables a line, with exact tones and rhymes. Senior bureaucrats judge on craft, vivid scenes, and heartfelt depth. Victory brings honor, perhaps a leg up in the civil service or a nod from an influential mentor. That's the Tang path to success. Merit over bloodlines, at least on paper. Truth be told, family ties still sway the elite ranks. Still, the exams and poetic traditions open doors unseen in prior eras. As the competition unfolds, you stroll the Academy's vast library, surrounded by scrolls and volumes. Confucian canons, Buddhist scriptures, Taoist writings, annals of history, anthologies of verse. Scribes copy many by hand, though block printing gains ground. Text etched backward into wood, inked up, then stamped onto paper for endless duplicates from one plate. This method's been around, but the Tang hones it sharp. For now, temples churn out sutras and talismans in bulk. Eventually, officials will tap it for almanacs and decrees. In time, it'll journey westward. But today, it's simply another Tang marvel in a sea of them. As twilight descends, the rhythmic pounding from the drum towers signals the end of the day. Curfew looms and the massive ward gates are set to seal. You're expected to retreat to your home, barricade yourself inside your district until sunrise, yet you ignore the order. Instead, you venture toward the West Market District, where the strictures loosen up. The night bazaar thrives in defiance of the law, officially prohibited, but quietly condoned by officials. The commerce generates too much wealth, and elites from high places indulge without restraint. Lanterns cast a warm glow over the avenues in hues of crimson, amber, and ivory. Stalls brim with sizzling skewers of meat, golden fritters, honeyed pastries, and an assortment of libations. Folks in Tang China adore their drinks, from exotic grape vintages imported from distant lands to local rice spirits and millet ferments. The celebrated Bard Li Bai gained eternal fame through his boozy escapades, with verses that toast the haze of inebriation. You snag a serving of wine and meander past the vendors. The air hums with lute players, graceful dancers, and even exotic Central Asian spinners, clad in vivid garb, alongside tale spinners, weaving narratives from sacred Buddhist tomes or epic tales of forbidden loves. This unveils Tang China's hidden pulse, far removed from the orderly civil service or rigidly structured odes. It's a realm of revelry, diversion, and barter that scoffs at the evening lockdown. Women mingle freely here too, though not the proper matrons. Courtesans, artists, and tavern maids. The Tang period granted females broader rights than eras to follow. They might claim estates, seek separations, or rarely even claim office, yet traditions still tethered them to home life, air-bearing, and decorum. But amid this midnight hubbub, societal chains slacken. Hours tick by, and eventually the patrol guards take to the lanes, imperial troops charged with clamping down on the curfew. Wanderers face seizure, lashes, or levies. You duck back through your ward's entrance, just as the portals grind to a halt. Timber barriers crash together, bolts sliding home. Dawn alone will free you. Chang'an embodies this tension. The planet's most vibrant crossroads, its cultural vanguard, its pinnacle of ingenuity, all while gripped by unyielding oversight, endless vigilance, dusk-to-dawn confinements, layers of edicts. The Tang order enforces harmony through paperwork and intimidation. Families get tallied, citizens shadowed, travels scrutinized. The system delivers. Crime stays scarce in a metropolis of 1 million, though the weight of it chokes the spirit. At last, you're in your quarters, where rice paper panes shimmer from inner lamps. Your spouse lays out a basic supper. Grains, produce, a touch of river catch perhaps. Your little ones toil at their scripts, tracing symbols endlessly for flawless form. Knowledge reigns supreme in Tang China, the ladder to status, the badge of enlightenment. You guide your boy through his work, unpacking venerable writings and tweaking his brush technique. One day he might conquer the civil service trials. He might climb above your own modest rank. Such is the Tang's vow. Success through prowess, not pedigree. Genius prevailing over favoritism. The ideal doesn't always hold, yet its glimpses spark change. That sums up a single day in Tang Dynasty China. Not merely the fine fabrics and elegant lines, not only the sagas and sovereigns, but the true Chang'an. Enforced silences and secret trades, officialdom and spirits, sojourners murmuring in Persian beside erudites intoning ancient rhythms. The Tang spanned close to 3 centuries, from 618 to 907 AD. At its height, it crowned the world as the mightiest, most progressive, most elegant realm. While Europe's lands groped through obscurity, Chang'an pulsed with 1 million lives. A labyrinthine body of laws, multiplied books via prints and star-tracking mechanisms powered by water. Where other powers shunned strangers, the Tang drew them near, borrowed their wisdom, blended their ways into its own. Tang breakthroughs endure today, the woodblock method fathering the printing revolution, Taoist experimenters sketching paths to black powder, refined mapping arts. They honed fine china, forged verse styles timeless in scholarship, forged in administration, rewarding skill above bloodlines. And then it shattered. The Anlushan revolt of 755 AD gutted the heartland. Countless perished, core power frayed. The lineage dragged through another century and a half, but glory eluded it forever. By 907, the Tang dissolved. The realm broke into battling fiefdoms, though its legacy endured. Future rules idolized it as the summit, China's cultural zenith. To this day, scattered Chinese kin name themselves Tang descendants. Overseas enclaves of their kind echo as Tang folk lanes. Empire extinguished, yet its shadow forged the path ahead.